Hello, everyone. I see you all in chat. It's great to see you. We're here today with another episode of Split the Party, our casual MCG fans and staff hangout, closing out the week in quarantine and getting to spend some great time with each other. So I'm Darcy, and I'm here with Monte today, and we're really happy to be here. Oh, and chat is so excited tonight. It is lovely to see. Thank you.
Cool. Hey, chat.
So, Monte, how's your week been?
It's been okay. I mean, considering.
Yeah.
Right.
2020 good.
Right. It's been pretty good. I've been reading a lot of graphic novels lately, and I just finished up. There's a great fantasy one that I just finished the second volume of. It's called Isola.
Oh, yeah. It's got a cool cover.
Yeah.
I've seen it around.
Yeah, it's really cool and like high fantasy cool stuff.
Awesome. Oh, man. I have a big stack of the graphic novels that I need that, I bought too many of because anytime I walk into a comic store, I feel like I have to support them. And so now I have just too many cubic volumes of comics I haven't read. But I have a stack of I need to read them and decide if I love them and need to keep them or need to pass them on to live their next life with another geek, right?
Right.
I know Sean Reynolds is pretty good about that, sort of like read a thing, buy it and pass it along. I respect it a lot, but I'm not good at it.
I mean, sometimes, I kind of know when I'm done with something, am I ever going to want to read this again? And the answer is often yes.
Mm-hmm.
And I do reread my graphic novels a lot, the stuff that I love, and then the stuff that I don't. Yeah, I try to pass it along to maybe someone who would like it, unless it was just awful.
Right. Yeah. There's, I won't name names because I'd rather uplift, but there's a couple things that I'm like, I feel obligated to read it or someone gave it to me and I don't want to pass it on because it's just not great. And so I don't want to burden someone else with it. But presumably there's someone out there, who would like any, there's a match for someone out there, I believe, but it was not me. Yeah. I've been recently inhaling again for the second time, Gideon the Ninth, a great novel that came out last year, part of a trilogy. And it's really it's about kind of lesbian necromancers in space, although, it's mostly just a really weird, cool kind of mystery in a very interesting setting, in a very decrepit kind of location. And the dialogue is so good. You read it, Monte, didn't you?
I did. Yeah. And I've got the sequel sitting on the table downstairs.
Yeah.
Sean has started it, but I haven't started it yet.
So I don't often reread things just because I have such a long list of stuff I'm trying to get to. But this one, I basically looked at the first page of Harrow the Ninth and was like, oh, I do not remember enough of this. And Gideon was good enough that I'm going back. So highly recommended, chat. We have one of the members of Fandible, Katsuhiro, is saying that he was listening to the Sandman full cast audio episodes on Audible, which always looked really good. So.
Yeah, I heard great things about that.
Oh my gosh. Tiger of Wind ran Heist on Miracle 4 this week. That's awesome.
Oh, cool.
Oh, I'm so glad. There's space horror being run. Oh, this is very lovely. Angel Citadel is a really cool new blog that's putting out a lot of awesome Cypher System content and creating NPCs for people, doing deep dives in their Cypher System online setup of how they use Roll20 to sort of run their online games. So definitely go check them out. Thank you for participating, chat. Yeah. We've done some cool stuff with MCG together more recently. In part, I think it's finally hitting me how little we're getting to see each other this year.
Right. Because normally we have at least once a year a summit where we all get together in person and hang out for 3 or 4 days. And then we usually see each other at least at Gencon, if not some other convention, and obviously none of that's happening this year. And
Yeah.
so it's been a long time.
Yeah. I'm grateful that we've been finding some ways to kind of do non-work activities together. We've been watching some movies, and we've used sort of various methods to get that done. And I would say none of them are perfectly optimal yet, but, we're getting there. So we watched Being John Malkovich a couple weeks ago, and that was a blast. And we're going to maybe watch The Matrix coming up, which was sort of an unintentional, very cool trans narratives choice of movies together that I've really been enjoying.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Being John Malkovich, I don't know if I don't know how much of that was intentional, right? I mean, because it's old.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's got some really cool themes of transition and awakening and coming out.
Identity. Yeah, very much. And it's hard to tell, like how much I'm bringing kind of the modern milieu and reading that into those movies. And if so, that's perfectly fine and fun. But it is making me kind of wonder. It's really ambiguous how much, how it was originally intended for me. That's another thing that came up in when I was running A Woman with Hollow Eyes. We talked a lot about like changeries, right? And I know Adira, who is one of the players, was talking about like, wow, changeries are such fertile kind of creative ground for talking about trans stories. And I think and Adira was like, let us take that and turn it to, bring that really ramped up. And I think she did a great job with that. So I think I like when there's sort of creative elements that you can pull together and are open enough that you can read in what you'd like to in them.
Well, I mean, in that case, I can tell you that there was some intention there, right? I mean, the idea is that, in Saturn, you can be whatever or whoever you want to be, right? And I like the freedom that offers.
Yeah. Yeah. Have you been gaming much? What are you playing right now? So you've got play tests and stuff. You've got your sort of design play, but you've also got your online.
Which I can't disclose at this point, but I can say that particular cat will be out of a particular bag here in about a month or so. But I've also, I used to run an ongoing Invisible Sun game, and with coronavirus and everything, we have transferred that to online gaming. And so that's still going on and really fun and going well. These two I have here with me. This is not Invisible Sun, but actually from Talus, which is work-wise, if we're going to talk about that, something that we've been working a lot with lately. Like the whole team has been, especially Bruce and Sean, have really been working on the conversions of that and facing the challenges that are there.
Yeah. Monte wrote up a really cool kind of update about how, what's going on behind the scenes about Talus design. And you can find that on the most recent Talus Kickstarter update. And I took it onto Cypher Chronicles too, because I figured a lot of people are going to want to see that. And I think it's always fun for people, even like me, who just get glimpses of like what the design process is like, to hear a little more about, what does it look like at this stage. Well,
I mean, the challenge with Talus is just always that it's just so big. When we originally did it way back when, we sort of developed the mantra, if it's Talus related, it's going to take you longer than you think. And that proved to be valuable, and it's proving to be valuable here again in 2020.
I have a different relationship with that, and that is that my copy of Talus is currently MIA in USPS hands somewhere. So it is also taking slightly longer to get shipped back to me from mysterious locales. And so if you could all, cast a little luck spell for me that my copy of Tallest gets here, I would appreciate it.
Well, if worst comes to absolute worst, a guy.
True. Yes. Lovely. Some folks in the chat are saying they're very excited for Tallest. You should be excited. It's so cool. Yeah, I can't wait till we can show off some more of, I guess, it'll be a bit before we're able to really show like the previews, I imagine, because we're still pretty into the deep design.
Yeah, nothing's in layout yet for sure. But the first sections are all being edited and more sections are being designed. And by designed, I really just mean converted.
Yeah.
But that's its own kind of special sort of design. It's not just,
right.
2 becomes a 3. It's much more complex than that, because each of these game systems has its own needs. And we're not just doing like a conversion the way a computer program would, right? We're actually trying to make each one of these appropriate for the game.
Yeah. Actually, before we launched the stream, I was testing out our audio levels between Monte and myself. And, I was looking at the little green bar, right? And it looked like our audio levels, by however my computer is reading decibels, were at the exact same, amount. But actually, Monte has different levels of bass and I have different, levels of treble, right? And so I've been thinking about that in the way that, you can't quite perfectly compare apples to oranges in game systems either. There's sort of a bit of a science and a bit of an art, right? How it's, how it's felt by the player, by the GM, is a little more than the quantifiable nature of its parts, it sounds like.
It is, right? I mean, even if you're playing, fantasy Cypher, there are different expectations, and the players and the GM are going to have different expectations than if you're playing D&D. And that's fun. That's interesting to think about. Particularly, if you're like me and you have played and used and worked with a lot of different game systems, I think that's really fun. And there's a lot of people who say, "Oh, system doesn't matter," right? And I get what they're saying, because the GM and the players are a huge factor, but system does matter, and it certainly matters in the way of expectations. Even just as simple as like, there's an encounter with this particular monster. Is this supposed to be a tough encounter? Is it an easy encounter? Is it, and how long? What does that mean for tough or easy? And that can really matter from game system to game system, right? Cypher system fights are probably shorter but more dramatic, and kind of swingier than a D&D fight, for example. So there's a lot to take into account.
Yeah, and I think of game systems that, Cypher has the duality too that I really like, which is that you do have your pool points, right? And they're being used for different things, but you also have, you can move them down the damage track. And so you get that, for game systems that, like I know there are various systems that try to have more like, tension to first strike, right? Like if you're a sword duel or, a pistol sort of, firing, what do you call it? A duel, pistol duel, right? It's not a matter of, well, that person got to fire 6 shots and this person got to fire 16. It's like one bad shot, right? And so I like that you have the option to kind of have this 3 strikes, you're out in addition. So, and that's going to make your game feel so different.
Yes, for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, I want to point out that the beautiful art surrounding us is coming up in Liminal Shore, which is coming down the pipe. So that's in pre-order right now. And I'm really excited for it.
It's a really cool book. Bruce was the lead designer on that, and Sean did a lot of work on it too. And honestly, it is probably the Numenera book that I have had the least to do with.
Oh, wow. Interesting.
And that I really wanted to give them sort of carte blanche as far as like, okay, I just, we just need this to be weird. We just need a new weird place for the ninth world.
Yeah.
And they really took that and ran with it. And it's really, really cool.
Oh, dang. I'm very excited. The ninth world is already so bonkers that I'll be eager to peer into that. I've sort of like looked through the art, and I know the pitch, but I haven't gotten into reading the PDF very much yet myself. What I have been reading has been We Are All Mad Here, which is coming up very soon. And in kind of contrast to Getting the Ninth, which I'm just trying to like inhale, We Are All Mad Here is such a delight that I want to like linger through it, right? One of the things I've been really impressed with just looking through it is kind of extensive advice on, what do you think about when you're world building? And I mean, I shouldn't be that surprised because like Shauna, right, is such a writer and like has talked about world building before, but really breaking it down into accessible kind of here's how you can go about thinking what matters when you build a world and what are your touchstones. There's just a lot of really good advice for, of course, running fairy tale games, but also just any world you're going to sit down and kind of get on the same page with your players about, whether it's in an existing setting or building your own from scratch. I think the question of like, how do you get the whole team on the same page, in the same mood, kind of bought in is like a perennial issue, right? And I think this book is really handling it in an awesome way. I'm excited for people to see it.
I love how, that book and Stay Alive and Stars Are Fire, obviously they're all covering different genres and they all have sort of a unique approach as to how to handle that genre and portray it in a cipher system game. And I like that because it's not just, okay, well, for sci-fi, you do this, for fantasy, it's each one of those topics needs such a different discussion, right? Yeah. And I'm a huge fan of that. We worked on Godforsaken as well, and that's in layout right now, I think, proofing. Yeah, it's pretty far along, and that is kind of a different beast yet again, and it's I'm really proud of all of those books. I think that they came out really well. And, when you do I guess what I'm saying is when you do a series like that, sometimes they tend to feel kind of cookie cutter like toward the end. And none of these books feel that way to me.
No, not at all. It's beautiful. We also have, I feel like so much has happened since our last Split the Party. I'm not going to like go through all the news items, but I do feel like a lot has happened. We had Gencon online. So chat.
Part of the reason why we didn't have a Split the Party, right, is because we were doing Gencon online.
Yeah. And I would love to know who from chat were there. It was really pretty amazing to see our events really sold out. I think we just weren't sure what to expect. Having a convention online is such a different experience than it would be in person. We kind of tried to, make sure, like I at least wanted to, not put like 999 seats in our Zoom call in case it was crashing or whatever. I kind of wanted to get a little bit of the sense of the intimate that we usually get at Gen Con. But I think I probably undershot that. I didn't expect so many people to really come out and see us at an evening with MCG, to our GMing for the Cipher System seminar. Both of those videos are up online on YouTube now, but man, it was really cool to have in person and chatting with fans and the little chat. Yeah, I was really impressed.
Yeah, it was fun. And it all went off pretty well, I think.
Yeah, a lot of announcements. So some stuff that you should all keep an eye out for. I'm sure we'll be, very loud about it on social media. But Shauna has been working on a really cool Cipher System RPG for Tidal Blades. which has lots of aquatic monsters. So it makes my heart very happy.
Yes. Yeah. That is really cool. We're partnering with, help me.
With Skybound Games.
Skybound Games, thank you. Because they've created this fantastic world for a board game, and we're creating the RPG, and it's really cool. And Shauna is immersed in the middle of that right now. And a lot of cool Cypher System stuff coming up. The Diamond Throne and
Weird Tales.
Weird Tales, right? Yeah. Which I am intrigued by. I'm really interested to see where that goes and how that works out.
Awesome. Folks who are looking for the, just look for youtube.com/Monte Cook Games. We'll get you to all our YouTube archive videos. So be excited for that. One thing I wanted to call out when we picked this topic, kind of online gaming, one of the things that comes to mind is that, we always have amazing GMs at our conventions and in our asset team, and I'm super lucky to get to work with them. They make my day. But man, they pulled off a really amazing Gencon experience. And I definitely want to shout them out now that I have the floor briefly. They did so well at capturing some of the magic of getting to try a new system and game with strangers and have it all come together really beautifully. I was absolutely floored at how well our GMs took to the medium and did what needed to happen to kind of make that technologically happen. I got tons of feedback, and all of it was great and glowing, which was wild. So hats off to the online gaming maestros of Gencon Online.
Well, that's because people who play MCG games are awesome.
Yes. Yep, to the letter. They're so great. Yeah, should we dive into sort of
actually, before we do, I was going to point out that you were part of a cool new game that just came out that also ties in with online gaming.
Thank you.
Tell us about that.
I would love to. Yeah, so this was actually, I was starting to work on this right before I joined MCG. So this is sort of deep roots now, but I was there
ever a time that you didn't work for MCG?
Allegedly, someone put this tattoo on me, so there had to be a time before, maybe I came out like that. So I was a designer on Burn Bright, Bryte, which was an RPG designed around the medium of Roll20. And so it's playable at a table, but kind of optimized for a virtual tabletop. And it was such a fun design space, right? And I think we've just started to poke at what can be done when you really want to design around an online experience. But I had a blast. It's a beautifully weird, science fantasy, shocker kind of world. Of course, that's my jam. And the pitch is that there's one galaxy left, and in the whole universe, and it's being encroached upon by this very strange phenomenon called the burn, a weird kind of plasma-looking orange glow, and whole planets and areas are getting swallowed up and never heard from again. And so it's kind of a game about, dwindling resources and danger and the questions of, do you help your fellow people or do you act selfishly? And of course, this is a game that posits you are all people choosing for whatever reason to be heroic in the face of danger. And and there's really fun assets built in Roll20. I've been playing as a player recently on a stream, and that's been a delight. And getting to see some of the creatures that I designed and species be sort of take on a new life as more people play them and add to the kind of lore about how we're all thinking about these weird feather star creatures that I came up with. So very fun.
Cool.
Yeah.
I think that's awesome.
Thank you. It was really fun. I'm glad it's out there. Yeah. Apparently MCG tattoo nanobots got to me. Tragic. Very good.
So watch out. They're everywhere.
They're rampant.
Soon. Everyone will be sporting MCG tattoos and they won't even know where they came from. The virus.
Yeah, yes. Watch your mirrors. That's where they come from.
Yeah, that's a good Invisible Sun reference. All right. Okay, so let's talk about online gaming.
Yes.
And before we get into that, let's say, like, I want to say, like, today, I think we need to separate out online gaming and streaming gaming, which are similar, but have a lot of really different needs. And we want to just focus on online gaming. And so online gaming is when you use Zoom or Roll20 or whatever to just play with your friends and whatnot. You know, streaming is where you're actually letting the whole world watch you play.
Right.
But this is more intimate. This is more like what we're doing now because we can't get together in person. Right. And you know, some of us have been doing it a while because we can't get together in person because, you know, someone might live in Chicago and someone else might live in Seattle. So there's a lot of good reasons why you want to play online games. Darcy, what online games have you played recently? You just mentioned Burn Bright, obviously.
Yeah, I got to play Burn Bright. And then I actually ran a game of it online, but for my 2 roommates who live in my apartment. So that was kind of fun and weird and in between. But because I wanted to show them the Roll20 interface. So we were kind of gaming online in the same house. Let's see, what else have I played? I got to play during our MCG online summit, which was a blast. So played some different things, some of which I'm at liberty to talk about, some of which I'm not. And the other game I played was I got to be a player in a Numenera game run by an old friend and just sort of over Zoom, and 2 people were in the same room and the rest of us were sort of remote. So I feel like there's been a lot of kind of amalgam. You know, sometimes you get a couple people in a room or the same apartment since we're all, you know, trapped inside. Right. And I think it works out pretty well. Yeah.
Yeah. I've also, like so many of us, been doing a lot of online gaming recently. All of our play tests are now online, and I mentioned Invisible Sun, which has a lot of really particular challenges because it is a game specifically designed to embrace tabletop play. And, when you're not sitting around the table, you have to kind of come up with some solutions for that, managing the cards on the Path of Suns and all the different things. But it's still really fun and works out actually better than I thought it would. But I think that in general, like, the challenges that we have, you know, if you're used to gaming in the same room with your friends, right? Like, I think that there's just sort of an inherent challenge, and it just has to do with human psychology of, like, we react and relate to people in the same room with us different than we react to, you know, a face on a screen or, you know, 6 faces on a screen or whatever. And so we have to work a little bit harder, I think, to overcome those. What are some of the things that you do, Darcy, to kind of overcome those problems? Yeah,
I think your best game ever, which I think just popped up in one of the commands, the chapter of your best game ever that deals with online gaming breaks down some components of the sort of what that barrier is in a really good way. And I think one of the ones that sticks out most to me is really that attention. And this is something people are talking about in chat a little, you know, whether or not you choose to use video affects things, right? And one of the things it might affect is that you might be on work calls all day and you might be zoomed out. So, you know, the video might be kind of fatiguing to you in some ways. On the other hand, I find that in games I used to play an allegedly Fate game. It was kind of like Kung Fu kind of game. We rarely rolled, so mostly we were sort of just telling stories together and occasionally rolled some dice. But we didn't use video, and I found that we worked through it, but when you don't have video on, I've noticed that it's it's a little easier for players not to have that eye contact. And so it's easier for my brain to get distracted, to check my phone, to not have when I don't have something visual to settle on, like another person's face or maybe a pretty piece of art, I find it a little harder for me to keep focused solely on the game and not whatever else is on my computer, my cat next to me, So that attention is one of the pieces of the barrier that I think I struggle with.
I'm suddenly reminded of this time when I was in college, obviously, before there was online gaming, and one of the players, it was sort of a key moment in the game, a key session, important things were happening, and one of the players couldn't make it because he had a big test following day, but he called on the phone and was just kept wanting updates and would keep calling. What's going on now? What's going on now? And eventually just like asked for someone to put their phone like down in the middle of the game so he could hear and kind of participate. And we all just kept saying, why, if you're going to do this, why don't you just come over? So he was playing without video, I guess. But in the end was actually playing the game, right?
There's a game I used to play on Monday nights of 13th Age, and I just, for various reasons, a weekly game is like a little too much for me. And so I haven't played, but for a while, again, I was still this sort of lingering, even though I can't play, they all moved to Discord. And so I technically can like hop in at any point and just listen to one of their games. And so I've done that once or twice when, I saw in Discord that they're going to face off a big NPC that I was really excited by. And so sometimes I'll work on some overlays and just listen to a game being played. And I guess that's sort of streaming culture too, right? It can be kind of fun to listen to other people having fun. But so I feel for that player, even though he should have just come over, but very charming.
He wasn't studying. He should have just come.
One of the things I liked that to consider too is that, there's the invisible barrier of, we're online. And so it seems like so many physical things have been removed, but, there's actually a number of challenges. But I've been thinking too about the ways that meeting in person have their other barriers. So something I was really glad to see called out in your best game ever is about like parents with kids. Right. I think kids are, from what I hear, kids are a lot of work and very rewarding, but take up a lot of time. And so the amount of time it takes to get to a game session, and if those game sessions tend to be long, because while you're over there, you want to maximize your opportunity. I think a lot of those get lifted or eased when we moved online, or can be.
For sure, right? I mean, even if as a parent, you still have to kind of attend to your kids occasionally, right?
Yeah.
You're still, you still get to be part of 75% of the game as opposed to 0. And it's better than nothing. And obviously, like we talked about too, like sometimes just distance keeps us apart. In fact, I just want to encourage everybody watching, like, if there's somebody that you used to game with and or used we're great friends with, but unfortunately distance and whatnot has separated you, now is the time. If you haven't already reached out to that person, right? Like I know a lot of people have done the thing where like their regular game group that meets is now online. Well, now's the time. You can also add that person who's on the other side of the continent from you too, right? It's just as easy. There's absolutely no difference if they're down the street or in another country.
Yeah, that's a great point. And one thing I really loved doing when I had a little more time back in the day was like running Numenera demos for strangers at friendly local game stores. Like, I loved it. I did it obsessively for a couple of months, and then the many, many hours on the CTA with like dozens of pounds of books were like a little much for me. But you can, through places like the Cypher Unlimited Discord, there's lots of places and cons that are going online that, I think one thing I really loved was picking up games and running it for like new people. And I think that's something that now that we're all sort of used to going back online, there's a lot of opportunity for.
Yeah, it makes that a lot easier. I want to mention two completely different, but I think things that make online gaming in a way better than in-person gaming. Some advantages that we definitely, as we enter into this realm, we want to take advantage of. I know that in my current Invisible Sun game, I have made huge use out of artwork. If you've ever had the chance to take a look, I use Pinterest. I have tons and tons and tons of Pinterest pages, one dedicated to each of the MCG games, plus a bunch of other stuff. And, I will take cool imagery from, my Invincible Sun board, right? And I will put it in, share my screen because we play on Zoom. Then it's really easy. And, I get to say, you see this, right? And I don't know, there's something very nice about, okay, for a minute there, I don't have to think about people staring at me, right? They're staring at the cool monster or whatever. It almost kind of gives me a Zoom break in a way, right? And plus it engages everybody, and it, we're already all staring at screens,
right?
So why not utilize that and give them something really cool to look at? Obviously, Roll20 does this really well, and gives everybody a map and everything if you need that for your game, and that's a great thing. But I also want to jump on another thing, and Darcy, you'll remember, I think it was last Halloween, I ran a creepy game that was all online, and what I wanted to do with that game was embrace the fact that it was all online. So the conceit of that was that it was actually like the story of the game was, it was a bunch of people on a Zoom call,
right?
And then weird stuff happening. But one of the things that I was able to utilize in that game were all the different ways we have to communicate. And you can use this in any game that you play, right? You can send people, if there's some information that you want only one player to know about, right? You can send them a text. You can contact them on, Slack or what, there's so many different avenues for that. And that's really interesting. And I don't feel like I've even fully explored all of the different avenues for that, but there's something to that, right? In a way that, when you're in person, you've only got one way to communicate with everybody, right? So that's kind of interesting.
And those different venues do have different feels, right? Like I kind of associate, Slack is sometimes where like work lives, and text is where certain kinds of conversations happen, and Gchat is another. So I think you can take advantage of that. That's a great point. Another game that I got to play at last Big Bad Con was Alice is Missing. And that is a game, kind of a mystery thriller game that happens all over text. So you're texting people and it's silent. And so, and that was really intense, a really intense experience to be, waiting for that message to come in. So I think there's a lot of dynamics that can be taken advantage of there. Something about the visuals is that, I've been thinking about how that ties into what Shauna talks about when you're building a setting and trying to get everyone on the same page, these kind of touchstones. What do people have that we all have the same, experience of pointing back to, what's affecting all of our moods, even though we're in different places. And I think that's really smart. And, no matter, I know that Sean likes to use a lot of cool backgrounds and stuff and, weird effects on his Zoom video feed to sort of evoke that. So I think there's ways for the players to get it in addition to the GM, which is very fun.
It is really cool. And I think, to just delve down pretty deep here, like there's an interesting aspect to that. Like when I'm running a game in person, I sometimes like to not use artwork and visual aids like that, because I want to describe the thing that people see, and then I want everyone to have in their own head their own vision of it.
Yeah.
Especially if I'm running like horror or anything like that, because what's scary to you is going to be different than what's scary to someone else, and so I want them to have that experience for themselves, like in their own imagination. But like you were just saying, right, there is such a value to do it the exact opposite way, right, and give everybody the exact building looks like. This is what this NPC looks like, and give them a piece of art. Like, I think there's very distinct reasons why you want to make one of those choices or the other. But online gaming, I think you definitely want to lean toward the visual with the touchstones, because they're just, there's the invisible wall that we keep talking about that exists when you're online, and it's such a great way to overcome it.
Yeah. One of the questions in chat is asking about tools that we might use when we're online gaming. And I think, a lot of us tend to play games like Cypher System, games that are a little lighter mechanically to run. And so you can get by with, just a Zoom call or just a Discord chat. But one of the things that I've been enjoying, in addition to things like Pinterest boards or places where we can all go look at art together, I've really been enjoying using Notion, the note-taking app. And it has some cool templates for like RPG campaigns. And I found it really useful in part because I think one of the ways that I engage with games that doesn't usually work when I'm streaming, unless I do it digitally, is taking notes. I think that if you've ever played a game with me in person, a lot of times as a player, I'm just like scribbling stuff down, and it's just helping me kind of tactilely experience the game. And I've really been getting that out of Notion. When I'm at my computer, I can just quickly type a few things. I could still look at the camera, and so I'm not disengaging from the video, but I still have written down that NPC's name, and I've been able to kind of go through my logs of just some kind of stream of consciousness note-taking and clean them up later as I remember what happened. And I think that online games, they can produce a record in ways that sometimes is a little harder to access for in-person games. And that record might be, development modes that are happening in Slack in between your Invisible Sun games. I know a lot of people do that, and it's nice to have that record. If you are streaming a game or just recording your Zoom call with your friends, you have that video for the player who was missing to go listen to. Sometimes I'll listen to previous sessions of just non-streamed games if I've recorded them. If I'm a GM, it reminds me, it gives me a chance to look back and think about, the players were really engaged with this piece. That player was really so excited about this. I get reminded, and it kind of helps me prepare for the next session. So I think the online gaming experience gives us a lot of ways in which we can, capture more of that experience and hold on to it a little longer.
Yeah, I think, and not everyone is going to agree with me on this. This is probably different for different people. But for me, if I'm playing an online game, it is hugely advantageous to have everything in that same space. I almost think of it as like a mental space. It's like the fact that I can run I can play in a Cypher System game, for example, and I'm playing over Zoom and I see everyone's faces, but I've got our form fillable character sheets that you can, so it's all right there, as opposed to, looking at the camera, but also having my notes and my character sheet and my books and everything. I love to use PDFs when I'm doing online gaming. I somehow mentally it helps me keep focused on the virtual world, right? As opposed to I forget that there's even an actual room around me anymore. Right.
I've been thinking about that in the way that, online games, in my experience, when you're running them, I think a little bit of effort in preparing some materials, like what will you specifically need for this specific game, basically front loading that work and getting all the materials you want sort of digitally, even if you could have it in your book. I think there's a lot of value to that. And I think that, that's extra work, but I think it is usually worth it in my experience. And so sometimes that's taking a character sheet that's physical and just typing it into the form fillable one for me. Sometimes that's knowing that I want, this adventure, and so I'm going to have the PDF of that up, but I want this creature from a different book. So I'm going to have this creature's, page up in a different PDF. And so getting all of that set up so that I don't have to go looking for it is very valuable to me. I think the searching for a thing is something that I have less patience for when I'm running an online game than I do in person. And I think
that's probably true. I would love to actually talk to a psychologist and find, I bet there is a thing, right? Where it's hard. Like if you're like interacting online and whatnot, and you've got most of your materials there online and whatnot, but then suddenly you have to like look for something in a physical book. Like I'm imagining that there's a mental switching of gears there that actually, kind of slows you down probably a little bit. I feel that way is true for me anyway.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Do you roll physical dice when you're rolling, or do you like to use dice?
Well, most of the time I run games, and most of the time I run MCG games, so I don't roll any dice. If I like online die rollers. If I'm playing online, I think it's pretty cool, and I think it's pretty cool that everyone gets to see it. Not that there's. Not because I'm worried about cheating, but because I think there's something cool about seeing other people's die rolls, even if it's just numbers on a screen, as opposed to just kind of hearing the clatter, clatter. I got a 7, right?
Yeah, right.
But we do both.
Yeah.
Certainly in Invisible Sun, running Invisible Sun online is a little bit different yet again from all of this, because there are these physical elements.
Right.
And there are ways to do even those online, but I don't, right? I still have the Path of Suns board in front of me, and I'm still putting physical cards down and just kind of holding them up and saying, okay, I'm playing the Misunderstood Beast on Indigo. It would be on some level, now that I'm actually thinking about it and saying this out loud, I'm thinking, maybe I should figure out a way to do all of that virtually. It would be cool.
Yeah, I think it's possible. So it's pretty cool. Chat's basically been reacting, talking about, it seems like lots of us have different preferences on exactly how we want our online setup, just like we have different preferences in how we do kind of in-person games.
Right.
So
for sure. Yeah.
How do you feel about minis? This is sort of getting off topic, but this is a casual chat. What's your stance on minis?
Well, obviously, if you're talking about like something in Roll20, that's pretty cool. Because especially if you do I don't know, did they call it Fog of War?
Right.
Roll20, right, where you can only see what you can actually see, and that's pretty cool. Obviously, the old Dungeons and Dragons designer in me is sort of triggered in a good way by that kind of thought. So a long time ago, I used to run a 3rd edition D&D game for a group of people, and one of them moved away, and but he was kind of wealthy, and so what he did was he left a laptop with us that we would just like sit in where he used to sit, right? And then he had 2 different webcams that he could control over the internet, right? And so it was kind of like playing online, but just for him.
Yeah.
So he would have a top down, because we used a battle net with miniatures, and so he was able to see all of that. But then he also had this other, like I said, that he could control, and so like there'd be like this scrolling little which was a little creepy, actually.
Yeah.
The little Big Brother, 1984 kind of.
Oh my gosh.
Watching us, but it was a way to make miniatures usable.
Yeah.
right? Was to have a camera focused on them, but still a camera that could look at the people. Because that's the problem that I worry about when it comes to online gaming with miniatures, is that you become so focused on the minis that you're no longer interacting with the people.
Right.
And that's the important part of gaming, right?
Yeah. Oh, that's fascinating. I feel like I've used minis. You know, I tend to run very theater of the mind games. And so I haven't run many games where it really matters. Are you 5, or 10 feet away from that person, right? Where we kind of really need grid combat or anything. But man, for the finale of my Numenera campaign, the first campaign I ever ran, I ran it with another GM. It just became clear that like the big epic battle at the end, it did sort of, the stakes were high enough and the field was complex and interesting and weird enough that it kind of did matter where we were in relation to each other. So we busted out, weird things to represent each other and had Mountain Dew cans as the tower. And we sort of just naturally ended up using kind of minis in play. And, I think that like, ever since then, I've been like, minis, maybe more useful. Minis are tokens. And for sort of physical play, I know we're going to have Numenera character and creature stand-ups coming out really soon, which I'm very excited
really
for.
Cool.
I'm
excited.
Beautiful.
How great they turned out. Yeah.
And then the sort of online piece of that is that I just discovered, and this is because I'm a fool who doesn't use tokens a lot. I just discovered that token stampers exist. So if you want to pick, you've got your cool Pinterest board of a bunch of cool pieces of art for NPCs you're going to use or inspirations, you can take those art pieces, and there are little web apps that will stamp a cute little like colored token ring around it and make it an easy downloadable file. So knowing that those exist make me much more interested in if I am going to want to play a game where it sort of matters where people are at, making my own custom little tokens really easily.
Very cool. Yeah, if we're actually getting out of the bounds of online gaming and just talking about miniatures, well, I could spend the next hour just talking about that. I mean, obviously a lot of my roots come from using a lot of miniatures in games with Dungeons and Dragons and stuff. And I became kind of, I think it was a sickness. It was an illness of getting more and more miniatures, and I was painting them all, and I became very obsessive with like, I had to have this setup that actually looked like it really, so I was using, cool Dwarven Forge stuff. And if there were 12 kobolds and I only had 11, then I changed the encounter, right? Because I couldn't possibly think about using a goblin miniature for a kobold.
Wow. That's delightful.
Like I said, it was an illness, and I went, I've got rehab and well, I'm better now.
I watched my very first speed painting video of a mini, and I'm like, I can see the like abyss before me, and I'm like, Darcy, go no further. But I am fascinated. There's so much art to it, and there are all these cool techniques about how you mix the paints and getting washes, and there's just a lot. It's a whole world that I got the tiniest glimpse into. And Dave Hanlon, I need to shout out, has been doing beautiful things, painting the minis of the pre-generated characters that come with for Invisible Sun. So he got the mini set, and he's been painting them just gorgeously. And those models are beautiful to begin with, but seeing them come to life with color, amazing.
They are, and as someone who's painted a lot of miniatures, they're exciting too, because they're bigger than 25 millimeters, so you can get a lot more detail, and they're actually easier to make look really good, I think. Because they're bigger. So
heck yeah. Some folks in chat are talking about using Lego characters. They're very cool, cheap, fun. Folks using dice in place of minis. Yeah, I think there's a lot of fun options. I've done the dice, definitely. I've done like weird coins. Coins are a little less fun. It's nice when it's something sort of three-dimensional.
I have done all of that too.
Yeah.
I remember like when I first started in when I first started playing RPGs, I thought miniatures were stupid because, like my friend painted up an orc, right?
Yeah.
Like, oh, we have an orc now. And well, okay, great. But when do you ever encounter an orc? Right. And so then we went back to, just using pennies or whatever we were using. But yeah, I've run the gamut. Dice are cool because you can actually use the numbers to your advantage, right?
The 3 goblin is is almost down, but the 5 goblin is is the
you can like track their hit points or their health or whatever by the die that represents them.
Yeah, I know Savage Worlds makes a lot of use of like, is the little paper mini or like 2-sided stand up, is it standing up or is it on the side? They sort of show that as a tracker. So that's something you could do with the stand ups coming out, which would be fun. I'm excited that there's so much character art. I find that's something I really like to give, especially new players. So I might have it here, possibly. Okay.
The stand-ups?
No. What I used before the stand-ups existed, which was printed out images from like the character options book that I had put into little penny sleeves and had a bunch of that I could just hand to players and say, which of these characters are you?
Nice.
So it's very DIY, and I will be grateful to have a proper, prettier art to be able to hand out.
Very, very cool.
Yeah. Well, we're almost at an hour, and I just want to shout out that we are going to be able to do some more streaming upcoming now that we've got Gencon behind us. We've got some cool stuff on the horizon. So look forward to, Tammy and Shauna are going to be on talking about the campaign that Tammy is running of We're All Mad Here, which I'm very excited by. And so I might be on that chat as well, which will be very fun. And I think we're going to try to have some more, members of the team cycle in on these. They're eager to meet with you. A chance for you to see them, even if we can't be at a con together. So definitely let us know on social media and places, questions you like, what you'd like to hear from people. We can try to get folks telling you secrets of their, inner design lives and art design lives and everything else, so that you can get a little more time with them. I think I always like these.
I mean, these are sort of casual and kind of meandery discussions that we have, but we come into them with a general topic that we want to try to cover. And if there are other general topics that people want to hear about, we would always be open to that kind of feedback too.
Absolutely. Yeah, chat, you've been great. Thank you so much. All right, Monte, anything else for folks? What should we leave them with?
Well, I wanted to put a plug in, our most recent product, our most recent Invisible Sun product is the Threshold.
Yes.
And if you haven't had a chance to check that out, it's sort of, it's a weird book because it gives you some advice on and a direction to go to have the end of your Invisible Sun narrative, but at the same time, it's also a really good introduction. It's the kind of thing where people have been asking a lot for, could we have some more Invisible Sun fiction? Because I'm having trouble, kind of wrapping my mind around all this weirdness and whatnot. And so Threshold has a lot of that in it. You can really get an idea of what it's actually like to be a Vizsla and what it's like to live in Satyrine and the fun and the travails that are involved in doing so. So check out the Threshold if you get the chance, if you're at all interested in Invisible Sun or if you're already an Invisible Sun player, because it will hopefully kind of give you a maybe the best view into the setting that we have ever done. Absolutely. That's a great point. A lot of people in chat are way ahead of you. Very excited. And yeah.
let's see. There's someone said that Angel Citadel Josh said that they really like the difference in presentation, and that's every Invisible Sun is such a weird game line. There's sort of nothing that doesn't break, any mold that tried to be formed was broken far before it could mold properly. But this one really stands out.
Yeah, that was very intentional. I wanted all of the supplements. Like as soon as we did a supplement, I was like, okay, well, we're not going to do another supplement like that, right?
I feel like Bear was like
completely different. And if you have some kind of OCD issues with that, sorry.
Yeah. Excellent. Some folks are asking for more fiction, which they probably will see. There's some fiction projects that you're working on.
Well, right now, I mean, we promised some Numenera fiction, a Numenera novella called Yesterday's Whispers in the Liminal Shores Kickstarter, and I'm working on that right now. I'm
so excited.
I think it's fun. I'm happy with how it's going.
Yeah. Okay, I think those are all we had for you today, chat. Thank you so much for closing out the week with us, talking a little bit about online game and just getting to hang out with you. This is always really appreciated. We'll have the YouTube video up not too long after this, and we hope to see you at future sessions of Split the Party and have great online gaming if you get to it.
Yeah, and stay safe.
Yes, please. I hope you're all hanging in there. All right, we will catch.
Stay safe and stay sane. Right?
I know, yeah. Pet it. If you have any pets, give them a pat for me. My cat's right here. He didn't come on stream at all tonight. Very shocking.
We are all a little disappointed that there was not
Chewy.
a Chewy cameo.
Well, he'll make up for it next time, I'm sure. So, all right. Have a good night, folks. Take it easy.
Good night.